a growing demand for buying British. People recognise the challenges of climate change, wanting to buy local, wanting to buy British. And we need to come together to work out, actually how we are going to produce more of what we're good at.
Are higher food prices here to stay? Do we just have to get used to paying more for our food? In the past year, the price of food and non alcoholic drinks has gone up. In fact, it's gone up at its fastest rate in decades. And the figure back in March was 19%. Now, some supermarkets think that food inflation has passed its peak. That was the chat in the papers over the weekend. But the National Farmers Union, the NFU, is warning this morning that the situation is unlikely to change anytime soon. And they will be telling the Prime Minister that at a Number 10 summit tomorrow. Let's speak to the president of the NFU, Minette Batters. Good morning to you, Minette.
Good morning.
Why do you think it is then that retailers, the British Retail Consortium, etc., are saying that they think that the peak has passed and things are starting to come down, but yet you don't think that that's the case?
I think for certain things that will be the case, but we've got to remember this is a long-term situation, that there are definitely things that can be done that would ease the situation. For instance, government's own energy scheme, the ETII scheme for poultry producers, for growers, if they could access that scheme, that would make a huge difference to energy costs. We've also asked government to use the powers that they have and have an investigation into the supply chain to see where the challenges lie and where we can make sure there is fairness to give primary producers the confidence. I mean, we produced 1 billion less eggs last year compared to 2019. Now we've been self-sufficient in retail and eggs and would want to remain so. So there are definitely things that can be done. But I think you've got to look at where we start this journey from, and we've still got the most affordable food per income spend in Europe. So consumers here, compared to other European customers, indeed people across the world, they're still getting a good deal. But of course, the cost of living crisis, we've got to do everything we can to make sure food is affordable.
Why then? I mean, I appreciate you said at the beginning that some prices may be coming down, but I mean, the retailers and the retail organisations must know about the stuff that you've just mentioned there. So are they just trying to be optimistic?
Well, for some commodity prices, don't forget this is all globally driven. We have seen, the price of grain has come down markedly to what it was last year. There are challenges, shortages of sugar. Many will have seen those problems. So for manufacturing and processing, it's pretty challenging picture out there. But for primary production, whether that's salads, whether that's eggs, whether that's poultry meat, we've seen real contraction in British production, and we've got to do things that will incentivize and give confidence to primary producers that they will effectively get back to where they were. And I would say the summit tomorrow is actually, it's the first time that it's ever happened. Prime Minister has hosted it. So a big change in direction from Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister. And we should be producing more of our food on these shores. We've got 70 million people. We've got a phenomenally good climate that other countries don't have. We've got lots of states of emergency with water security across the world and in Europe. So I hope this is a very positive conversation actually about how we produce more of the food that we're good at producing here in the UK, and none more so than our fruit and vegetables.
Now, you said that so this summit that's happening, as you said, is something that Rishi Sunak wanted to happen. It was actually a promise that he made during last year's Conservative Party leadership contest, the first of its kind. Presumably, then you're going to raise the energy situation that you mentioned there for farmers. What else do you think you can actually move the dial on?
Well, we certainly will be raising the energy situation and accessing the ETII scheme. Also, the powers that government has. When we left the EU, they have, in Section 20 of the Agricultural Act, they have powers to order an investigation in exceptional market circumstances. Well, I think everybody would agree these are exceptional market circumstances right now. So that is another thing that we'd like them to look at. And this, of course, at Number 10 will be bringing, cross-departmental working in, which is absolutely vital if we are going to deliver a comprehensive food strategy. So I really hope there are results on the back of it, because, every retailer I speak to, there's a growing demand for buying British. People recognise the challenges of climate change, wanting to buy local, wanting to buy British. And we need to come together to work out, actually how we are going to produce more
Mm.
of what we're good at. We're always going to be importing citrus fruits and bananas, sourcing out of a global food larder, but there are many things that we're fantastic at producing here, and the British season just coming online. It's a very timely summit tomorrow, and I have to say it couldn't be more needed.
I think it was last year that we heard a lot from farmers and from people who run abattoirs, saying that there just weren't the people. There were huge gaps in the labour market. There were no lorry drivers. I mean, this was a continuing theme for, it felt like a year. It might have been 6 months to a year, because there just weren't the people involved in the kind of food chain, be they lorry drivers transporting the food, butchers, fruit pickers, whatever. And I'm sure you'll be aware that Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, is going to give a speech today saying there's no good reason why British workers cannot be trained to fill vacancies in jobs such as lorry drivers and butchers. And she's warning that Britain risks forgetting how to do things for ourselves if net annual migration remains at hundreds of thousands. Where in 2023 is the place of immigration in terms of the food supply chain in this country, do you think?
I think there are massive challenges for our whole economy, and particularly for the food and farming sector. I mean, if we look at seasonal workers, we wasted £16 million worth of crop last year that wasn't picked. Now, that's a tragedy for those growers, but it's an even bigger tragedy for consumers here not being able to source high quality British products. So, we want to see a permanent seasonal workers scheme. We want to see one that represents the true figure of 70,000, and one that does not have to be reviewed annually and lasts 9 months of the year rather than 6. And that's just on the seasonal side. There simply aren't enough people who are unemployed at the moment to do the jobs that are available. Some of that in future will be about automation, but automation at the moment has gone as far as it can go. So we've got to build bridges effectively.
Mm.
And it's been very frustrating that immigration per se has just been taken as one, rather than where is it impacting our economy and what can we do about it. When we were in Europe, we were the preferred country to work in. Now we're bringing people in from very, very challenging parts of the world. But, everybody's talking about growth. If we want growth, we've got to have access to the skill set. We've encouraged everybody out of these jobs in the past, all parties have. So I would agree with her that we need to incentivize people to do these jobs, but that hasn't been the case. And it's not just going to flick a switch overnight
Well,
and
that's it.
happen.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. How did we encourage people out of the jobs in the first place?
Well, 20, 30 years ago, people were very much encouraged, and indeed it was part of daily life to be picking the fruit and vegetables in the fields. People were encouraged actually, to get into city centres, and that has just been part of life, and have jobs that are inside, that are easier. We've been encouraging people to, go to university. I think there's an enormous opportunity with skill set and apprenticeships to be able to actually, transition, not stopping people going for university. That might suit some, but there are many that are vocational orientated. But we've got to value these people, and, people who are picking crops. It's phenomenally hard work. It's phenomenally skilled. And, we've also heard government saying this is low skilled work. It isn't. So we've got to change the dialogue, I think, if we want people to do these jobs.
Very interesting. Thank you, Minette. That is Minette Batters. She's the president of the NFU.